In the sleepy town of Maplewood, where the trees turned gold and copper each autumn, life moved with a quiet rhythm. Children ran down sidewalks lined with crunchy leaves, their backpacks bouncing as they laughed and played on their way to school. Among them, one pair stood out, a boy named Eli and his loyal black Labrador, Shadow. Shadow wasn't just any dog. He was a soldier's dog, brave, intuitive, and fiercely protective. But more than that, he was family. Every morning, Eli and Shadow made their short walk to Ridgewood Elementary, their bond evident in every step. When they reached the school gate, Shadow would sit patiently beside Eli until the bell rang. Only then would he turn and trot back home, his routine steady and proud. It had been this way ever since Captain Thomas Rains, Eli's father and a decorated Army medic, had brought Shadow home from his last deployment overseas. He was trained, but what mattered most wasn't in the commands he followed. It was the soul in his eyes, the warmth in his loyalty. One chilly October morning, everything changed. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale gold light across the town. The smell of fresh dew hung in the air, and the wind whispered of coming change. Eli stood beside the old oak at the front gate, clutching his dad's hand tightly, with Shadow resting by his feet. Captain Rains was leaving again. Another deployment. Another long wait. Eli's mother tried to be strong, her voice steady, but her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. The captain knelt, adjusting Eli's jacket collar and pressing a hand to Shadow's chest. "You take care of them, boy," he murmured, voice low and steady. "You watch over Eli." Shadow's ears perked up, and he gave a soft whine, licking the captain's hand. Eli wrapped his arms around his dad, holding on with all his might. "When will you come back?" Eli asked, voice trembling. Captain Rains hesitated for a moment. "Soon, buddy. I promise," but soon is a strange word to a 10-year-old. It stretches long and hollow, echoing through days that feel endless. The captain gave one last squeeze before walking to the waiting military jeep. Shadow barked once, soft, almost mournful, as the vehicle rolled away, disappearing down the long road. From that day forward, the air felt heavier, the mornings colder. But Shadow didn't falter. He walked Eli to school, just like always. Only now, something had changed. Each day, after dropping Eli off, Shadow would return to the school gate once more. He would lie down on the bench beside the big oak tree and stare down the road, ears pricked, eyes fixed. He waited, not for the school bell, not for Eli. He was waiting for the man who said he'd come back. At first, the teachers thought it was coincidence. But day after day, rain or shine, Shadow returned. When snow came, he curled up tighter, his black fur dotted with flakes, unmoving. When spring rains poured down, he didn't flinch. He was a soldier's dog, trained to endure. And now, he was enduring the hardest mission of all. The wait. The townspeople began to notice. The baker across the street started bringing scraps of warm bread. The school crossing guard left an old wool blanket beside the bench. Children, curious and fascinated, whispered tales of the dog who guarded the gate like a sentinel. Some said he was waiting for a miracle. Others said he could smell the ocean wind on his master's uniform even from 1,000 miles away, and every afternoon, when Eli came out, Shadow would walk him home. He never let the boy see the full weight of his vigil. But every evening, when the house grew quiet and the lights dimmed, Shadow would sit by the door and whine softly, his tail thudding gently against the floor, a soft, steady beat of longing. Winter deepened. One evening, Eli's mother came home clutching a letter, her hands shaking. She sat down beside the fire, eyes glassy, unable to speak. Eli read the letter himself, his small fingers trembling as he unfolded the page. Captain Rains had been injured during a rescue mission. He was alive but recovering in a military hospital. There were no promises this time, only hope. Eli didn't cry. He simply turned to Shadow, who had already laid his head in the boy's lap. The two sat there, still and silent, their hearts wrapped in shared understanding. That night, Eli whispered into the dog's ear, "He's still coming home, right?" Shadow looked up, eyes glinting in the firelight. He gave a soft, reassuring lick to Eli's cheek, as if to say, yes. The next morning, before the family had even woken, Shadow was already gone. Eli found him later, sitting at the school gate, his breath misting in the frozen air. His spot was the same under the old oak, beside the bench. That day, the school was closed for break. There were no children, no laughter, only shadow and the wind, and the long road stretching into the horizon, and still, he waited. Days turned into weeks. The townspeople built a small wooden shelter by the gate for him, just enough to shield him from rain and snow. Children left drawings and handwritten notes beside him. "Come home soon, Captain. Your dog misses you. We love you, Shadow." Somehow, the dog's unwavering loyalty began to heal the hearts of those around him. He reminded everyone of what it meant to hope. Then, one soft April morning, it happened. A yellow taxi pulled up at the edge of town, tires crunching on gravel. The door opened slowly, and a tall man stepped out, leaning heavily on a cane. His uniform, though faded, still held its dignity. His left arm was bandaged, and a faint limp slowed his steps. But his eyes were alive. Captain Thomas. Rains had come home. Before the driver could even retrieve his bag, a sound pierced the quiet, a bark, loud and sharp. Then a blur of black fur shot across the street. Shadow, the dog, galloped down the sidewalk, his paws thundering on the earth. He launched into the captain's arms, careful yet overflowing with joy. The captain dropped his cane, falling to his knees as he buried his face in Shadow's fur. "Good boy," he whispered, voice choked. "You waited. You really waited." Moments later, Eli came running down the block, backpack swinging wildly, tears spilling from his eyes. He threw himself into his father's arms, hugging both man and dog in one breathless embrace. There were no words, only warmth. The kind of warmth that comes from promises kept, from love that never wavered. That day, the bench under the oak stood empty for the first time in months. Shadow never had to wait again. Moral of the story: a dog's loyalty isn't measured in time, but in the love that never leaves. When hearts stay true, no distance can break the bond.